how do you feel about this film being your first major role after Everything Ever All at Once, to be a role that would call back to like so many things that you've already done previously in your career? How was that for you?
Well, when this script came to me, I actually I thought it was really well written, but I didn't think I was right for Marvin Gaye. I just couldn't see myself as the lead, and I think that has to do with I've never been a lead before, and I'm so accustomed to reading something or being in a movie where I'm not the number one. So in a way, I think I've been conditioned to think that. And it was not until I reached out to my favorite filmmaker, Spielberg, and he was so gracious with his time. And I told him about this, and I said, they offered me this role. It's Universal Studios, and I'm a lead. And he listened and he said, you should do this. And all of a sudden I go, wow. And then I went in and met with our producers, 87 North. And when I realized that, what they were trying to do was to create a different kind of action hero. Somebody that, that doesn't look like Schwarzenegger or Stallone, that we have seen, all these years, but somebody that looked like me, who doesn't look lethal at all, but when you mess with him, he's really badass.
He can look pretty lethal.
And then that immediately really fascinated me. And now, I'm so proud of the movie. I'm so glad, I did this. Yeah. And it's my first leading role ever.
Yeah. Congratulations on that, by the way.
Yeah, thank you.
I was just telling Ariana that both you and her, I would say, are two of the most important Oscar wins that we've had in the past few years. So what was it like being with her on this project, and not only being with her, but both of you are kind of playing roles that people may not be necessarily used to you playing? It's kind of maybe new to some people to see both of you in an action film that's like a breakneck pace like this. So what was that like, both of you come together for this moment?
I love that, that this movie is a little refreshing. And, Ari and I, we have that very special moment on Oscar night, when she opened the envelope and she announced my name with so much emotion, and that really was very special to me. And we would see each other at various events, and I would always run up to her and tell her I want to work with her. So when this came and we were thinking about who can play Rose, and her name came up, I immediately jumped up with joy and I said, yes, please do whatever you can to make her say yes. So to be in this movie together and to have that, that moment at the Oscar was really something. And honestly, she's incredible in this movie. This is her, first movie doing these kind of fights. And she's a true badass.
Yeah. And now we need a Rose and Marvin sequel to see where they end up after this film. Yeah. But nice to chat with you so much, and I can't wait for more people to see this film. Your character is one, we don't really know her intentions, a good part of the movie. So you're left wondering, like, how did she get in this predicament? How did she pull Marvin into this predicament?
How? Why? How?
Who, what, when, where, why? That's what we're trying to figure out.
A lot of questions.
But what was it like being able to, since we do like kind of get into the story so quickly, how did you kind of form a lot of the backstory that we may not even seen on screen of Rose that we don't really see a lot of until later in the movie? So how did you kind of have that inform your performance of so much of what we may not see, but we can feel from this character?
Yeah, I think at her core, for me, I formed the belief that Rose flew on instinct, right? I think the audience slowly discovers her motives. But when you look at women in society and also on screen, how we perceive them, it's kind of similar sometimes to the ride that you're on in this film. Yeah. And so in that vein, I just said, then just go, just play, just be. And that your intentions as this character are pure and good. And at the end of the day, it all comes down to her feelings for Marvin Gaye and his belief or sorry, her belief that in there is so much more than he's even perhaps allowed to express. You know, I think because she sees that in him, it's a reflection of herself. And she's working towards trying to gain the opportunity for her full expression, if that makes sense. But yeah, that's sort of where I started with that. And then it became something that I was just like, well, I got to follow the energy now. Here we are.
Like, we're here. Let's go with it.
Let's just go with this. Like, it was fun. We had fun.
Yeah. And of course, you and Ke are two of the most, like, at least for us, the most notable Oscar winners of, like, the past few years. The performances, you know, mean a lot to people, and they meant a lot to just see people of color to win those awards. So what was it like for both of you to be in this movie, but also kind of like an about face from like what people may expect from you and him, just very different. Like you would see like, hey, these Oscar-winning performances, and now they're in like this like breakneck pace action movie.
Yeah.
What was that like?
You know, it was fun. I think we both have a mutual admiration, right, for each other. And in that way, we were like, let's just surprise people. Let's surprise each other. And that's what this film really was all about. I think it's important to keep audiences guessing, to keep the industry guessing to a point so that they don't think that you're just one thing. You know, I think it's very easy to try and place people in a box for our own understanding, right? We're comfortable with what we know. But as actors, that's not why we do this work. We do this work to try on different things. And if I had come to this particular side of the industry with the want to just play myself all the time, I'm sorry, I should hang it up and go do something else. That's not the point of acting. So in that way, being two people of color, taking on these types of characters, leading a film, giving a new expression to these archetypes, I think it's exactly what the industry should be doing. It's exactly the type of work we should be doing, especially in the face of, you know, the attack on DEI. And, you know, I think this is a really good film that allows, you know, the opportunity for the industry to stand on all of those gains they have said they have made over the years. You know, I think I'm very passionate about my belief that if we're going to ask society for its full expression of compassion, empathy, equity, equality, we also have to be that. And I think this is a film that is being it in its way.
Absolutely. I know it wasn't intended for like this film to come out during this time, but I think it's like important it comes out at the time.
And it kind of wild, again, divine timing. Won't he do it?
Yes, amen. At what point did you know that you wanted to, you know, become a director? Did you know that, would you want your first film, your first feature, to be something that's so inherently tied to Stunt and Fight Forever that you're so involved in?
Yeah, well, it's not like I planned to be a main unit director. I kind of worked myself up from performer to second unit. I was doing Deadpool 2 as a second unit director. And Kelly McCormick, we're sitting down and she was like, I think you guys start thinking about, you know, what your next phase of your career is going to be. She's not getting any younger. And so, that, you know, that's the first time I started popping in my head. I go, okay, maybe I should just think about, you know, directing, right? And then you don't ever feel like you're ready. You know, you're like, oh, I'm going to wait, but you just have to do it. And I would get a lot of scripts, and when I read this script, I knew, I was like, this will allow me to kind of spread my wings and differentiate myself from my peers, because, you know, there's a little bit of everything. There's action, there's a little bit of comedy, a little bit of romance. So it allowed me to kind of spread my wings a little bit.
Speaking of the script, I read that the script has actually been around for quite some time. When you first read it, was there anything that you thought that it could be relevant to, you know, current themes that you see in film and TV today? And was there anything that, you know, granted, I feel like 20 years, it's hard to think that 20 years is still like in the 2000s at this point. Time goes so quickly. But what were your thoughts on that?
Well, when I read it, I loved the premise and the characters, the quirkiness of the characters. I loved it. You know, I think when you're reading it, you have to interject like myself in there somehow. And again, that script's been around forever. In its first incarnation, like I think David Leitch wanted to direct a version of it, and but the scripts have been around since the early 2000s. So I think just the way of the dialogue and how it was said and how the characters were presented is, you just had to make sure it fit the here and now.
Yeah.
And then at the same time interject my sensibility into it.
Yeah. And because the movie does move kind of fast, what was it like being able to, like, I guess, toe the line between, bringing viewers into this world immediately, but also being able to fill in the backstory?
Yeah.
Because I feel like we meet them, and even with the character Rose, like, we don't know a lot of her her intentions for a good part of the movie.
Yeah.
So what was like being able to balance, like, just enough to, like, be pushed into the now, but also providing the background of who these people were before then?
Well, again, we're doing a fast-paced movie, and there is a lot of backstory to each character. And I think the main thing was trying to keep the audience engaged the whole time without really like doing like, oh, what about this? What about this? I just want to keep them present at this, So when we're doing all the kind of the test screenings and seeing what everyone was reacting to, that kind of like, took away some exposition about a lot of the backstory. I just wanted people to focus on their performance like now and, really just be into them in the present. Like,
yes. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me. I can't wait for more people to see this movie.